Our guest for today's episode of Getting to Know You is Wes Parker, joining us from BHMA. Welcome to Getting to Know You, Wes. I'm so glad to have the chance to interview you today.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to answer some of these questions.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in South Hadley, born and raised. Went to Mosier Elementary, Michael E. Smith Middle School, South Hadley High School, so all South Hadley. After that, and after college, I moved around a bunch, and thankfully I ended up back in South Hadley.
Where'd you move?
There was a bunch. So I toured the country.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tour with this professional drumline circuit
cool.
for 2 summers, which was cool. So for those 2 years, I kind of just bounced around. But yeah, I lived in Chicopee, lived in Longmeadow, lived in Hudson, Mass, which is between Worcester and Boston.
Nice.
Spent a few weeks living in Boston, so lived in Connecticut for a little while. There was a lot of moving.
So basically Massachusetts?
For the most part, yeah, sticking around the Northeast. And
then you come back to South Hadley?
Yep, I'm living in South Hadley again, and I love it.
What instrument do you play?
Primarily guitar. I learned drums first when I was younger and went from drums to bass to guitar, and I still play all of those, but primarily guitar.
What is it like to be in a band with Joel T?
Yeah, so it's fun. I'll say that. It's definitely interesting and never a dull moment. As of now, I'm not sure if it's even still a band. We're still releasing, we have a record to release for either this year or early next year. But other than that, yeah, it's always been fun hanging out with Joel.
I know he worked here. Can you shed the light on?
Yeah, for sure. So
he was a teacher here.
Yeah, and I've known a lot of people who worked at BHMA for a long time, a lot of other staff. But
okay.
And then Joel started to work here, and I was excited for him because I've never heard anything but good things about BHMA. So, when Joel started working here, he said nothing but great things, and I knew he loved working here. And then Chris, who was in the band with us, started working here. Again, nothing but good things from Chris.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's 3/4 of our band have worked at BHMA.
How often do you, on that same subject, do you contact with Joel?
Yeah, so for those of you listening and aren't familiar with the situation, Joel worked at BHMA. I'm sure he might have an interview on this podcast somewhere. If not, we might have one coming up. But he lived in Western Mass, worked at BHMA, and then he moved to Texas to pursue music further. And so it's been pretty rough trying to contact him. I mean, we still talk every other day or so through Instagram or social media, but no 2-hour-long heartfelt one-on-ones. But no, it's still fun talking to him and stuff. And when he comes around, we hang out.
Yeah, you guys gig with him?
We're trying to set it up so next time he's up here, that the band that Chris and I have does a gig together.
He wasn't up here for that gig?
No, it was a different gig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you what did you major in college, and where did you go? I know you went to Westfield State. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so before Westfield State, I went to HCC, and I was in their music department, and that's where so at HCC, I attended for a classical guitar performance, which was awesome. I learned so much, and that's where I met the bass player from Writing in the Skies, which introduced me to Chris, and then we got Joel. So it was HCC's where all the magic really happened. And after that, I went to Westfield State, where I was doing classical guitar performance and music education. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for college.
How have you liked your time at BHMA so far?
So far, I love it. The staff here is great. The students are awesome. Everyone's fun to hang out with, and there's not a day that goes by where I don't just love it, and there's not a smile on my face. So,
what do you like to do with your spare time?
So, outside of BHMA, I'm still mostly doing music, whether it be performing solo stuff with my acoustic duo, with one of my many metal bands. So there's always a lot of music stuff going on, but when I'm not doing that, I'm either running, reading, playing chess, and that's about it.
What is your favorite style of music to play?
My favorite style to play, honestly, is primarily this instrumental solo acoustic stuff I do. It's kind of like classical guitar, but it's more modern, I guess you could say.
Could you give us a variation of it?
Yeah, like there's a guy named Andy McKee, who's my favorite right now. But there are a handful of people you could check out in that style. Andy McKee, Craig DeAndrea, Antoine Dufour. All of them are phenomenal in that style, and it's just instrumental acoustic guitar.
If you could play with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh, I would have to say Agustin Barrios. There's a million different ways to. He's got a few different names, but that's the one I know him through. He's was a classical guitar composer in the late 19th century, he's probably my favorite guitar composer of all time. So to sit down with him and jam some stuff would be phenomenal.
What is it like to work with people with disabilities?
It's great. So far, I've enjoyed just getting to know everyone and what everyone enjoys doing and their strengths in music and such.
Is this your first time working with people with disabilities?
No, it's not my first time. In the past, I've worked at a few different high schools, whether it be Springfield, Enrico Fermi, and Enfield, South Hadley High School. I've always worked with people with disabilities, but usually it was more one-on-one. But yeah.
How did you get involved with BHMA?
Kind of previously stated, through knowing Chris let me know that there was an opening here. The job I worked before this wasn't music, it was in logistics, which was very, very long days, very stressful, and and Chris knew that and said, hey, we're going to have an opening, or we do have an opening here, you should apply. So I applied, and thankfully I ended up here.
If you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, it's between flying, teleportation, and invisibility.
That's what Ben Rosenthal said.
What, teleportation?
No, he said those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me it's between flying, teleportation, and invisibility. I want to say invisibility, but I really think teleportation. Because then I could sleep in bed until 5 minutes before I got to be anywhere, and just boom. Don't got to think about traffic, anything like that.
For the people who don't know what Westfield State is or where it is, can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, Westfield State University is a college in Western Massachusetts in the city of Westfield. I primarily wanted to go there because my guitar instructor from HCC, who I also took lessons with after HCC, his name's John Mason, phenomenal musician, phenomenal person. He taught classical guitar at Westfield State.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I wanted to go there primarily to continue to study under him. But yeah, a lot of Westfield State staff also work at HCC, and a lot of UMass Amherst staff also work there. So HCC was a cool little spot where you get all that good education in one spot. So yeah, Westfield just seemed like the next.
How many years did you go?
I finished up 1 year at Westfield. I did 3 at HCC, and then
So you didn't go all 4 at Westfield?
No, I did 3 at HCC.
For your viewers who don't know, for the outside viewers who are listening who don't know, it's a 4-year college, isn't it?
Westfield is, yep. If you go to Holyoke Community College first, you can transfer into Westfield for that year. It was a transfer.
For viewers who are unfamiliar, if you go to HCC, you can't transfer to any other school?
No, you can. You can transfer to most other schools. Westfield was just the one that I chose to go to.
You can choose to go to any?
Yeah, most of them.
Okay. Thank you for everyone for listening to today's episode of Getting to Know You. And I'd like to thank Wes Parker again for taking the time to talk with us.